Thank you. So everyone is very familiar with that, I'm sure. So we'll be recording this meeting as well. So again, thank you for joining us. The First Community First Technology Advisory Committee for 2024. And so we would like to just, catch up on all the things that have been taking place with this project and talk about, next steps as well. So if we can see the agenda real quick. Yes, so today, just a quick welcome and overview. We'll have project and Community First Technology Advisory Committee updates and overall project updates. We'll have a guest presentation from CalSTART. We'll have some time for discussion and feedback, and then focus in on next steps for the project. And if you all wouldn't mind just putting your, for those of you joining us today, put your name and organization and your title in the chat, we would greatly appreciate that. So let's go to team introductions. All right. First off, we have from Grid Alternatives. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Giovanni?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Giovanni Hernandez here, Clean Mobility Program Manager with the Grid Alternatives team. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you, Giovanni. And if for some of you that I might not know, my name is Stella Ursua. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Partnerships at the LA Office of Grid Alternatives. Thank you. How about CalSTART?
Hi, I'm Giovanna Escamilla. I'm an Associate Project Manager here at CalSTART. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Giovanna. Let's see who else is out there. Liz?
Hi everyone, I'm Liz Hellier, Project Manager in the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure team at CalSTART.
Good, thank you, Liz. Let's see, do we have Lisa or Nathan on the call?
Hi everyone. My name is Lisa. I do project outreach here at CalSTART. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else from the CalSTART team? I know Tuan is traveling right now, so she's on a plane, so we might not hear from her, but how about from EPRI?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Bush. I am with EPRI's Electro Transportation team. So happy to have you all on the call.
Thank you, Kristen. And Tuan just chimed in the chat. Thank you so much. So let's go to the project overview. And Gia, I think you're going to do that for us today, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so project overview. So basically the eTruck project is just, the purpose is to create a California research hub to facilitate and accelerate the electrification of the heavy-duty drayage vehicle market in key areas. And we have a few project goals and objectives. So first being advancing research, development, and demonstration activities that will extend the delivery range of the heavy-duty drayage trucks. The next is engaging broad stakeholders with a community-first approach and using this input to promote equity and workforce development opportunities in priority communities. And the third is planning, designing, and deploying innovative, scalable public corridor charging strategies for heavy-duty trucks, and this is beginning with drayage trucks.
Good deal. Thank you, Giovanna. And I'll provide just a real quick overview. I know that we have gone over these slides many times, so most folks should be familiar with the goals, objectives, and function of the CTAC, the committee. This is something that we have been working on now for almost 2 years, I think pretty close to 2 years. And so our goals are to use a community first engagement framework to ensure that pollution impacted, underserved, and tribal communities are involved in creating and guiding this initiative. Our objectives: inform the project on community engagement needs and impact, disseminate and solicit input on project activities from community members and groups, promote equity in priority communities, and foster a community-driven partnership for technology and ZE Freight Corridor development, planning, and site prioritization. And finally, our function for the CTAC is to provide input on community engagement strategies and the equity plan, support equity and community engagement goals, and then inform all of you about the engagement activities. So just a real quick rundown. And next up, we have a summary of the CTAC function of the CTAC takeaways. And I'm going to hand this back to Gia.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we just gathered a few of our takeaways from this Community First Technology Advisory Committee from 2023. The first being informing communities. So as the public gains a better understanding of the EV industry, they'll be able to make more informed decisions for their communities. And so this feeds directly into community feedback, which is what we're trying to get with the eTruck project and the CTAC, where community participation in clean transportation projects will inform the industry on how to best meet community needs. Another takeaway from 2023 was that it's important to remind elected officials of these clean transportation projects that are happening in order to garner more support for even more work in this space. Another is interconnection, and this is facilitating connection between all aspects of the EV industry, whether that be manufacturing, maintenance, education, or the communities themselves, will create a well-rounded industry that accounts for all stakeholder needs. And lastly, the last 2023 CTAC takeaway was that environmental justice at the core, the projects that hold environmental justice at their core to address historical inequities that have resulted in communities being disproportionately affected by the goods movement are ramping up in California and beyond. And we heard from a few of those projects in 2023. So yeah, those are just our takeaways.
Very good. Thank you, Gia. And I believe that you're also going to provide project updates for us, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yes, so we have set dates and topics for our 2024 Industry Partner Webinar Series. So May 1st, we're going to have Drainage 101, and in November, we're going to focus on EV Site Planning 101. And you'll be getting those invites at some point, so yeah, please join us. For the Advanced Transportation Research Center, the High Power Charging Lab will be completed soon and ready to begin testing at some point early this year in Pomona, California. For the pilot demonstration sites, construction will begin mid-2024 for those sites in both Ontario and Carson, California. You can check out the published reports on the eTruck website to learn more about industry perspectives on the current state of high power charging. Our eTruck team works very hard on these, and so yeah, please check those out. And you can scan the QR code to find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Awesome.
And I will pass it to Gio.
Good deal. Thank you, Giovanna.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Giovanna. So just a quick sort of update, bringing this back to everyone. As many of you may remember, last year we brought up this launch of a CBO stipend opportunity for nonprofit CBOs for both our CTAC, so this body, the Community First Technology Advisory Committee, and for the other advisory committee that we also facilitate here with CalSTART and EPRI, which is the WEDAC, the Workforce Development Advisory Committee for this project. And so the eTruck project experienced some technical delays that put on hold our original target launch for this stipend opportunity last year. And as some of you may recall, we opened up the application period, that window ended. We were going to enter into review of applications and then selection. But because of these technical delays, we just had to put everything on pause and kind of reassess for when we can relaunch this. And so the team now feels that we're able to do that this year, given some new developments on, as Gia just mentioned, right, with the research lab and the pilot sites that will now sort of be coming online this year. And so after some time of deliberating what an updated collaboration timeline may look like, the eTruck team decided to relaunch this application in the event that certain CBOs that applied last year wouldn't be able to take it on anymore. You know, we understand that it's been a long time and that things change, priorities change. And so we want to open it up one more time. However, we have communicated to all past applicants on both the CTAC and WEDAC side that those that have already submitted an application with us last year, they don't need to reapply with this reopening and relaunching of this stipend opportunity. We will continue to consider their applications if they would like to be considered. So we've already sent out a communication to those applicants on both sides to ask, would you like to continue to be considered, or would you or not, right? So that we can also take that into account when we're ready to review applications and make a selection. So as you can see on screen, this is sort of the new uh, details and dates of for this stipend opportunity. So again, the award is the same, right? It's a stipend of $10,666 that will be paid quarterly over a 1-year period. The application will reopen this Friday on March 1st. We're going to leave it open for 1 month. It's not a long application. The team really wanted to make it straightforward and easy to fill out. So please know that it's not a really strenuous application to fill out. It's really short and easy. So we're going to leave it open for 1 month. Then we're going to take the month of April for application review and scoring, et cetera, with plans to make a selection and announcement in early to mid-May. And for this collaboration with the 6 CBOs that we select to be from May 2024 to May 2025. Again, we will be selecting only 3 organizations to on the community engagement side of things for this committee for CTAC, and 3 on the workforce development side of things. And we got this question last year, so I'll go ahead and get ahead of it. Can you apply to both? Yes, you can. You can apply to both. You need to submit 2 different applications, fill it out 1 time, selecting CTAC, and if you want to apply for the other one, fill it out again, and this time selecting WEDAC, right? So you can, and we will consider both. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions on this particular opportunity before we move on to our guest presenters today.
Thank you, Giovanni. Any questions? You can either raise your hand or put it in the chat.
And I forgot to mention, sorry, Ms. Stella, we will be sending an email communication to the whole CTAC, our whole CTAC members and our WEDAC members this afternoon, announcing this in an email format with more details and a website landing page for this CBO stipend opportunity. So there'll be more details on that email and on that webpage as well. So again, just be on the lookout for that email announcement going out later today.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ms. Stella.
No. I was just going to say, thank you. This is something that, we unfortunately, we wanted to roll this out last year, but because of delays, we had to hold off. But based on the report that Giovanna just gave us, we're going to start to move very quickly now. Very excited about the launch of the technology center, the research center, and all the things that come with that. So there will be some work that we'll need to do this year. That's for sure. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'm very excited to kick it off and bring on camera and on mic our guest presenters for today, which are both from our partners over at CalStart. Aaron Wimberly, who's project manager of equity and community engagement, and Elizabeth Hillier, project manager, also with clean fuels and infrastructure at CalSTART. They've prepared a wonderful presentation focused on equity in this project. And so love to invite them to come on camera and introduce themselves further and just take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. So Liz Hellier here, project manager on the clean fuels and infrastructure side at CalSTART, working on primarily on the fleet charging infrastructure needs assessment and corridor planning of eTruck. So I will be able to present the progress we've made there in terms of the charging infrastructure needs assessment and the first steps in creating an equity layer of this first heat map. And kind of bringing in the goals and needs of CTAC into the map building process. Erin, do you want to take it away?
Hey, apologies. I was struggling to find my mute button there. Let me also show y'all my face. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Great Alternatives. Thank you, eTruck Project, and everyone involved in that. My name is Ann Wimberly. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a project manager here at CalSTART as well. As Giovanni said, focusing on equity and community engagement in a lot of the projects that are in the Clean Fuels and Infrastructure department of CalSTART. I've been doing this for about 1.5 years with CalSTART, but my community organizing goes way back. So I would say like maybe 2011. So I'm super excited to be here and be co-presenting with Elizabeth so that we can kind of break down what equity means and figure out how we can incorporate it into this really exciting map. So with that, I'll pass it back over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Erin. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, and slide after this, amazing, thank you. All right, so throughout the eTruck project, we will be building a series of maps to visualize the progress made on assessing the charging needs in California. So this is map number 1 of at least 3 maps that I'm very excited to share with you. So the first step here in assessing charging infrastructure needs is first to identify the current state of affairs in California. So the map that you can see to your left, we have been collecting information on the current activity of charging infrastructure in California. So where are charging stations being built, both privately and publicly in California, that are currently opened, proposed and planned. And so another part of the project, which you can see on the right here, is layering on top of this information of current activity in California, trying to simulate truck travel behaviors in California that are currently happening. So where are trucks traveling? Where are they stopping? And so this is the first outputs that you can see here on the right-hand side, which is a product of our partners, Cambridge Systematics, a transportation consultancy, who have been collecting real-time truck GPS data in California, combining it with other data sources on kind of simulating travel behaviors there. And also a product of the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, so a research lab up in Berkeley that are also helping us with this effort. And actually this map is best viewed as an interactive map. So I'm just going to take over the screen for a few minutes. Thank you. All right, share screen. Can everyone see the interactive map? Amazing. So one of the reasons this is best viewed as an interactive map is because obviously there's a lot of information that we have so far. And so this map allows us to zoom in on details. For example, if we were to look at the Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach area, we can start seeing the activity happening here. So the darker lines represent higher truck travel volume. And so here we can see that there are already 2 stations that are currently open to the public at the Port of Long Beach. And there are also 3 stations in the area that are being planned, which means that they're currently being developed and are going to be opening soon. And we also have here a station that's represented in yellow, meaning that it has been confirmed as the recipient of a grant. So we know that in the medium term, there will be a station opening in this area as well. But if we zoom out, this map also allows us to see, so these parking station icons show us where there are currently truck public parking locations in California. So we can start seeing the routes taken by trucks in California, where they are stopping. So for example, there are clear corridors that are starting to appear here, but also hubs, meaning not just kind of a throughway traffic, but then there's also industrial activity happening in these areas. So this could be kind of the origin and destination of the trips. It could also be a port or a warehouse in the area. And so, for example, some of the hubs that we can start seeing are very residential areas, right? So we have Sacramento, we have San Francisco, Fresno, Bakersfield, Los Angeles, and San Diego. And so what's very exciting about this information is that it is the basis to be able to start simulating charging needs in California. So what we can do is we can isolate these individual trips that are being made by trucks and then aggregate them. For example, we can say that there will be an X amount of trucks that will be taking the trip from the Port of Long Beach all the way to Sacramento. And so now that we know this volume of trucks taking this route, we can say we simulate that they will need to stop at certain locations along the way to recharge their battery electric vehicle. And we will try to align this with kind of the current locations that they are stopping. So for example, a public rest stop to kind of not disrupt their current operations. So the next step in terms of this map is to be able to simulate these charging needs. So similar to here being able to see routes taken by trucks, we will also have different colors showing where there is a greater need for a charging station at that particular location. And so the reason why we are showing you this information at this stage in the project is because we are planning on integrating an equity layer to this heat map. And so I will pass it on to Erin to go through some of the engagement strategies and tools that can be used and then the goals for this equity layer. We can go into more detail in a discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Erin.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. There was one question in the chat that I wanted to just bring up in case you wanted to answer it really quickly by Hamid. They said that what kind of standard is used in establishing these charging stations? Will there be standardization of these chargers?
So I'm not able to see the chat here. Kind of standard. Sorry, Hamid, do you maybe want to go into a little bit more detail on what you mean here?
Hi, one of the issues that facing the electrification is the kind of standard, there are different standards, different adapters for charging. So the push is that to have a standard charging that can be used by all trucks. So I don't know if when you are looking into establishing these charging stations, will there be a kind of a standard adapters or a standardization in establishing these superchargers?
That is an amazing question, Hamid, and that's the $1 million question. So we are looking into this. So we are doing a technology maturity assessment, which should be publicly available in the next couple of months. But what we are seeing at the moment is that, especially, so we're identifying charging needs for the near future, so by 2030. And what we are seeing is that there will probably be a combination of different charging connectors at the site. For example, there may be a CTS connector and an MCS connector kind of coexisting at a site based on the charging needs. But yes, this is definitely something we're looking into, a very important question. And yeah, there will be more information on this in a couple of months, but this is just a preview of what we have been seeing in the field.
Thank you.
Sorry, Liz and Aaron, just to add real quick and to answer Hamid's question, for this project, we are looking into, and we've discussed this before in the past. We will be using for this project specifically what's known as MCS, the megawatt charging system, and there are standards that are being created for MCS charging stations. To answer your question, Hamid, so it will be. If it hasn't been completed, it will be for MCS chargers for this project, Hamid.
Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you both, and thanks for the question, Hamid. You're already dropping us into kind of what we want to see for this next part of the presentation, which is like a little bit more interaction, questions, answers, and just people raising their hand and speaking up and speaking out as they kind of, as I present some topics here today based on how we do community engagement and how we do equity at CalSTART with some of our partners such as GRID, and how we can kind of translate that into the medium and heavy duty vehicle and infrastructure space, because it's a new space, right? And there aren't any pre-established rules or ways that people are doing this already. So thanks for popping over to that next slide, Giovanni. As you can see, or as I understand it, previously these sessions have been a little bit more like a seminar where there's a presentation, and then at the end we'll do Q&A. And we want to kind of disrupt that a little bit and ask you to actually, as topics are being brought up for this part of the presentation, to please use your raise hand feature to speak. If you're nonverbal, please feel free to use the raise hand feature and then type your thoughts in the chat, and then we'll just read those out loud. And then I see everyone kind of already doing this, actually, popping thoughts and opportunities and things of that nature into the chat. So please continue to do that so that we can have a nice, robust discussion as we drop into, you know, what equity could really mean for this e-truck project and for the medium and heavy duty infrastructure and vehicle space at large. So with that, I will ask for this next slide. And on this slide, you'll see some words that read, equity is not a preset road that we take, but rather a destination to which we arrive by a robust and meaningful engagement. And the reason why I wanted to drop us into this first is because equity is such a big word. It's a really big goal. And it can be really hard to know how we get there. And so I like to break it down and just say, as long as we are staying engaged with the people who are at the table, looking around and asking ourselves, okay, who should maybe be at this table also, and inviting them and making them feel welcome, and then just staying engaged with them, I think that we get to equity, or at least different plateaus of it, right? Because it's kind of like success. It's a mountain of which there is no top. So I'll take that next slide, please, and introduce two topics before we get into more robust discussion. So on the screen here, you'll see the U.S. Department of Transportation's features of meaningful public involvement, right? It's a circle and it's got 6 different features on it, and I'll read them out really quickly. So the first feature is understanding community demographics. The second is building durable community relationships. The third reads understand community wants and needs. The fourth reads involve a broad representation of community. The fifth is use community preferred engagement techniques. And the sixth is document and share community's impact and decisions. So we're not going to go over all 6 of these. We're going to take a phased approach. That's like our favorite thing to do, you know, in transportation, is do things in phases. So today I'm just going to talk to y'all about how we do these first 3 features of meaningful public involvement here at CalSTART. I'll provide y'all with some examples of how we do them in some of our incentive and voucher projects and programs. And then we'll get into unpacking those things, kind of breaking them down. It's really helpful for me to just go back to basics, talk about definitions and think about how we do these things on a more human level. And then kind of like apply those same shapes to the medium and heavy duty infrastructure space. So I'm hoping that we can do that here together today. With that, I'll take the next slide, please. So that was kind of like our first theme, how we were actually doing public involvement, community engagement. This second slide kind of harkens back to what Liz was showing us, which are GIS maps. In my work, a lot of times we look to these maps, of which there are probably upwards of 25 of them bookmarked right now on my favorite browser. But GIS maps, of course, they have indicators or layers that give us information about the people who are living in these different regions. The first one here is the Cal Environ Screen map. This is a map that shows us disadvantaged and low-income areas. This is probably one that we use the most, I would say, here at CalSTART, as it is linked to a lot of policy and legislation that allows us to prioritize regions and populations within a lot of our incentive programs. This middle map here is from the National Equity Atlas. So in your reminder email, there was a link that gave you, I would say like 30 or more different equity indicators that this organization puts out and updates, just to kind of help us to understand how we can actually be engaging with the different domains of a community in order to impact their quality of life really in different ways. I'm going to drop this in the chat, actually, the different equity indicators, because I really want folks to, if you didn't have a chance to look at it earlier, just to kind of skim it a little bit. Some of the equity indicators that are on this map are race and ethnicity indicators, nativity and ancestry indicators, population growth, diversity index. Having a good understanding of all of these things are really going to help us to know who our communities are, what languages they're speaking, and how we can connect with them. And then this last map is just one that kind of helps us to understand housing affordability in different regions in California. So taking a pause here, just kind of breathe. We're going to try and see how we can put together community engagement and see how some of the ways in which we engage with the community can be represented on a map. So I'll take the next slide, please, Giovanni. And dive into how we understand community demographics. So I just asked folks to maybe drop in the chat or unmute and just kind of let me know if there are any maps that you're using right now to understand the communities that you're working in. And I'll also take the next slide, please, Giovanni. Oh, okay, silent group. I will start calling on people if we're not feeling like we want to unmute. All right, here we go. I see that Robert's here. I see Wilma. I see Viviana, Corina.
We have a raised hand from Michael.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I see Michael's raised his hand, Michael Rendler.
Yes, if you could help me with the raise hand feature, because actually I can't see any raised hands, that'd be awesome. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Go
Michael,
ahead.
are you able to take yourself off mute? There you go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my name's Michael Reller. I've been on a number of these meetings, and I teach at USC in the Safe Community Institute, and we have a curriculum we're actually deploying in West Athens called VCAP, Virtual Community Action Planning. And it's about how to build and bring this entire discussion into a geospatial narrative. And these maps, these Esri maps, they're awesome. And trying to get them aligned with what's called the Common Data Dictionary all the way up into how to really look at empowerment, as well as more severe issues such as homelessness, is actually a fully integrated approach. And so we're doing a pilot project with the county, Department of Health Services, because at the end, it really comes down to kind of a health narrative and well-being. And so trying to build all that, you know, we always use the expression, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, it becomes complex and difficult. So, you know, the approach is to actually create a comprehensive understanding. And then within that, you can then have engagement. And unless you have a comprehensive understanding, and we tested this in with the federal government in Kansas City, to show cities that they have to actually open the data sets up and get the community to actually use the data sets to use what's called data-driven design decision-making. And that is science, and that gets to STEM. I share this all with you because I think you guys have like the inroad into really deploying this. I was on the call a couple days ago with this equity conversation with Department of Transportation, and they're trying to embed this within the entire Department of Transportation institutionalized. They said equity is justice. And so I think this is a really important project, and I'm really glad to see these technologies emerging in the conversation. I put a couple links in the chat, but this goes all the way down into how we do simulation and virtualization in manufacturing, light manufacturing, which is the Slauson corridor across South Los Angeles. So it's a very extensive conversation, and I share this. I don't want to dominate. I just want to be, you know, helpful in any way that I can. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much for that really good information. And I think you bring up a good point, in that there's a lot of this work that's already going on. You brought up the CAT maps, climate action plans that are happening, community action plans that are happening. There are also community needs assessments, sometimes known as community transportation needs assessments, that are already happening in communities, and people are already trying to figure out what it is they really need, right? So I think you bring up a good point in that there are lots of resources that already exist. This work's really already going on. And I would say a part of understanding community demographics and a community at large is understanding the work that they're already doing. So yeah, I really want to thank you for bringing that up. Giovanni, are there any other hands raised?
No, but I do see that I believe in response to your question, Jacqueline Badejo did mention that they in her work they use VCAP. So I don't know if she would like to expand a little more on what she means by using VCAP.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Jacqueline Badejo. VCAP is what Mr. Rayler just covered. And so outside of that statement, I wanted to note that I'll put another type of map that we use. It's through the South Coast AQMD AB617 communities. And so there are 19 communities, and each community has a map. And specifically for South LA, it also has a story map. And that's the voice, it comes from the voice of the community and kind of aligns with the rules to focus on to reach equity. And so I believe that each map has a goal of providing information. There just needs to be a better job of the intra-governmental connection, so everything can be seen in one space. With the EPA, we have a lot of different projects, right? But I don't see how they all come together. And so, with that being the federal dollars, we have to start there because that's what's funding everything. And with these maps, if we're able to put them in a centralized location and overlay these projects, we can better reach biodiversity and ecology. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so very much for mentioning that. Interconnection, right? Us really having an opportunity to see on one page, like what all exists, what all is out there, so that we're not doing double work or reinventing the one, so that we're able to engage with other people and then also build off of that. So thank you so much for mentioning that and for bringing that up. And I see Gabriel's hand is raised as well.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Gabriel here with Climate Resolve. Just thinking through the different tools and resources we use to just kind of understand communities and demographics. We've used everything from like Cal and Virus Screen, Healthy Places Index, the LA County tree map, right? So looking at where kind of green spaces are and where they aren't. We've even looked into previous maps, kind of charting redlining in our communities, right? So that can actually also help illustrate why there's a lack of certain resources in certain communities, which more often are Black and Brown working class communities. So those really kind of help center some of our work. We also have a one of my colleagues that's essentially just working around our GIS maps and kind of just developing maps as we need them, just to kind of understand certain aspects of the communities where we're at, looking at extreme heat and extreme heat impacts for folks that we work with. But honestly, I feel like nothing really kind of can replace being out there in the community and speaking with folks and exchanging ideas to really understand like demographics needs and the impacts of climate change or EVs or whatever it is that we're working on. So I would say like really that's kind of where it all comes down to for us, is just being in the community and understanding what's happening on the ground. And that's been really the most helpful for us.
Yeah, thank you so much for those insights, Gabriel. And I think what your comment and some other comments from other folks brings up for me is this idea that actually, I'm going to try and remember her name. She's a geospatial analyst. Her name is Ava, and I can't remember her last name right now, but she really talks about how GIS maps really do a great job of providing a snapshot of an area or region, at a certain time. And they might even be able to show us where we want to go. But she really believes that these maps can actually do a lot more. And so I want to try and pose just Ava Reed is her name, actually. She's a geospatial analyst. I want to pose some questions that she asks in an article that she wrote a few years ago to this group, just to kind of touch on what Gabriel said about, how do we really, you can't replace being in community with people, right? Sharing a meal, listening to what they've got to say. But are there some ways in which we can use a map or a tool to actually connect us to people? Are there ways that we can use a map to show patterns and possible outcomes, to engage the larger community, and to connect folks to resources and to each other? So I'll just let that question kind of like sit with everyone, because we did have some real good discussion on this slide, and move on. to the next slide. Thank you. Which is well placed because as we talk about knowing who we are going to be serving, we need to think about like how we actually can build those durable community relationships. So I'll take that next slide, please, Giovanni. Thank you. So on the screen, you'll see to the left, it reads community relations refers to the various methods companies use to establish and maintain a mutually beneficial relationship with the communities in which they operate. Building local community relationships can be the most important communication activity undertaken by organizations, yet it's often overlooked. Here at CalSTART, I'll just say, we're, made up of, our organization is about 200 people, but on each project, there might only be like, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 16 people working on a project. But still, we're asked to connect with people across an entire state, sometimes across an entire region, sometimes across the nation. And we even have, I think our smallest team is made up of like maybe 8 folks, and they are trying to get different nations to sign on to global MOUs. And so, we ask ourselves, especially in the medium and heavy duty space, which is very industry heavy, like how do we actually build durable relationships? Understanding that there is no replacement for us actually interfacing with people in communities and on the ground. So I'll ping this question back over to the group and just ask, how is it that you build durable relationships, even just like bringing it down to like a personal level, just in general? And again, I can't see the raise hand feature, but we haven't heard from Alberto Campos yet. Hamid, would love to hear from you again. Robert, Jacob, Corina. Even in just your day-to-day life, unless you live in a mountain city by yourself where there's no one around, which I don't think anyone on this call does.
Well, I sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but I can say that we have worked with Harbor Community Group near the port. That was a while ago when we had projects from Port of LA on ships and so on, but we have worked with them, and they are you can truly establish a relationship and partnership when you go together for any new initiative or any new initiatives that impact the community. I mean, this relationship that we established, that for a long time, you can go to them and they understand, they trust you, that you work for the benefit of community. And so having this kind of monthly seminar or engagements that you discuss what you have done, what are the issues, and get the input to revise and get the input to update your perspectives and or initiatives, it has been really good. Once so it's a partnership that you need to establish and that the community benefits. So my experience has been that, I mean, once you establish trustable engagement, I mean, community partnership, it goes all the way.
Excellent. Thank you, Hamid. And I appreciate what you said about meeting with the community regularly. And this instance, your community was, I think you said the Harbor Trucking Association, which is someone that we work with.
There's a Harbor Community Associations, near the port that continuously engage the port because of the emission impact and environmental impact on the community and mitigations that are proposed and by the ports and through the grants and contracts that the port give, especially the community grants that they do. So it has had a huge impact in these engagements because of the port, especially Port of Long Beach invest quite a bit of money on community grants, for upgrading the community, the green areas, the renewable energies, the various meetings and, training opportunities and so on. So, that you need to really establish this kind of and invest into these communities for education, for partnership, to get their inputs. I got educated quite a bit by them. I remember one time I was giving a presentation at Carson Community about the various emission control technologies for the ships, and they challenged me quite a bit in that community, and I learned from them, that the issues, even though there were issues with understanding the technology, what kind of technology is beneficial, whether electrification is a good approach or mitigation through emission control is a better approach, but that kind of engagement and presentation that they did was quite a bit of, beneficial from both sides. It wasn't just his, the community benefit.
They had the opportunity to kind of like speak up and also be partners in you with the work that you're going to be doing in that area, right? And then you understood their perspective and you're able to consider it, right? I think everyone here probably definitely recognizes the importance of having that relationship, but it always bears repeating, I think, because there's so much value in us being able to meet regularly, interface regularly, be in proximity to one another so that we can just build those durable relationships and find out what are those areas that are mutually beneficial. So thank you so much for that input. If there aren't any other thank you. Thank you so much. If there aren't any other hands up, I'm going to move to the next slide because I think I'm running a little short on time. So I just want to say really quickly with this slide, before going into this last section, which is understanding community wants and needs. And in that section, I'll kind of let y'all know how we do that here in some of our different programs at CalSTART. But I want to note first that this is not a linear process, right? This is like a circular process, right? So, when we're thinking about how we can incorporate some of these things into the map, though we may want to be logical about it and think about a phased approach, I think a part of thinking about what phases fit in or what we can prioritize, right? As we go into this open discussion section, we want to understand that these things are very connected. So when we think about how number 4 can connect back to number 1, right? Involving a broad representation of community means that I understand my community demographics, right? And then as I look at number 5, that connects back to number 3, understanding community wants and needs, and to number 2, building durable community relationships. Both of those are related to using the community's preferred engagement techniques. And then also, as we look at number 6, document and share the community's impact and decisions, we see how those are also connected to number 2, build durable community relationships, right? So they're all very interconnected. And I see some folks are dropping off, but thank you so much for being here. So I'll take that next slide. Understand community wants and needs, and I'll go over to the next one as well. Thank you, Giovanni. And just dive right into some of the projects that we had here at CalSTART. So we've got the Energized Commercial Vehicles project, which is an incentive project for medium and heavy duty infrastructure. We have Communities in Charge, which is our light duty program, infrastructure program. We have clean mobility options, and so they really work in innovative mobility. And then we have our Eaton demonstration project, which was a medium voltage system that was pre-existing and pre-exists in lots of different high-rise buildings, hospitals, things like that. And so we were trying to figure out a good space and a good community to put this demonstration project that would take that already existing infrastructure and then place it within a community that needed it. And then we also have CORE, which is our off-road electric off-road program. So, oh, a mouthful. We're doing a lot. I'll just say that. But in each of these different projects and programs that we have, we try to put in, or what I've done here to the left is I've broken out the different ways that we talk about community benefits within each of those programs. So I think the largest one and the most widespread one that we've seen is location-based benefits. Right? A lot of times those location-based benefits are going to be cleaning the air in low income and disadvantaged areas. Then there are economic benefits. In those same areas, we're trying to apply some workforce development things, which help to boost the economic vitality of the people in that region, right? Then from there, we have identity-based benefits. And so that's prioritizing historically marginalized groups and government agencies. Site-based benefits, that might mean that we are prioritizing multi-unit housing or sites with green spaces. And then there's health-based benefits as well. And this is when we start to get into some of those areas that might seemingly live outside of transportation. But I think it's really important for us to think about, you know, when we are thinking about equity, when we're thinking about community engagement, we don't want to just have tunnel vision and only think about what will move our things forward, what will accelerate our market. But we want to really think about mutual aid, right? Well, we're putting our infrastructure in this community. They're housing our business for all intents and purposes. So what is it that we can give back to them as an offering, right? So that might look like supporting food access or countering some of the food desert models that exist, right? As Elizabeth said, you know, a lot of these stations that we're going to be putting up will follow a lot of those same routes that already exist. And so when we start to think about, you know, what health aspects outside of cleaning the air, even, you know, when it comes to food or healthcare, you know, what other things can we support as we're beginning to put in these charging stations? And then, of course, there's traffic and mobility benefits. So I'm not sure if folks have heard of Complete Streets here in this group. I'm sure you have, or Streets for All. And so thinking about how the things that we are prioritizing also help to bolster the goals of those programs as well, because they're already thinking about the entire landscape of transportation and centering people in the middle of that. I am going to just pause here really briefly to see if anyone's got any questions or comments. And then Giovanni will just skip to slide 28 after that.
Erin, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I want to thank everyone for your input. I saw that the chat was pretty active, so thank you so much for dropping all that information in there. We'll be sure to download that and track that. But for now, I'm going to pass things over to Elizabeth to kind of take some of these ideas that we presented here and try and fit them into the equity heat map. So I'll pass things back over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Erin. Great presentation. I think kind of the main kind of findings here is that there's a wealth of information, right? A wealth of resources in terms of maps that are already available. And I think we touched upon it, I think, with your presentation, Erin, and Michael Rendler as well. The idea that there are different narratives to a map, right? Michael was talking about the health narrative that we can take, for example, and kind of different priorities that a map can highlight through these equity indicators. So I think before we want to start just adding some of these equity metrics as a layer onto our map, we really want to sit first and really think about what are the goals of this equity heat map? What are the priorities of this, right? Especially when we're starting to think about freight corridor planning. I think typically, you know, one thing that an equity heat map has as a goal is identifying priority areas, right? We can see if there's an overlap with kind of high freight travel volumes with poor air quality in a disadvantaged community, for example. So we can identify priority sites when we start thinking about a deployment plan, kind of prioritizing where to start deployment. But something interesting that came out from a conversation with Erin as well is, can a heat map be used to do the opposite, for example, avoiding areas or minimizing impacts on, for example, disadvantaged communities? So one of the examples I can give you here is when, especially the private sector, when they think about where charging stations for medium duty and heavy duty trucks could go into, they are using land prices as an indicator, kind of how to prioritize where to put locations. And sometimes land prices are lower in disadvantaged communities or in industrial kind of neighborhoods, for example. So there are a few questions here in terms of, yeah, what do we want to highlight with this equity heat map? Or do we want to highlight kind of priority areas, or do we also want to highlight areas where we have identified that they are kind of, there's a high probability of a station that may be built in this area, and kind of how do we mitigate the impacts, for example, on that community? Or do we want to use the heat map, for example, as an information tool, as a way to connect with the community, as kind of a communication tool, for example, as the first step to bridge these equity conversations? So I'll open it up to the group. Maybe we can start with the first question here on this slide. What are the community needs and goals linked to charging infrastructure planning? And how can we build an equity heat map to answer these needs and goals?
And I know a few people had to hop off.
I'm wondering, sorry,
yeah,
I'm just wondering if Michael Render is still on the call.
I think he had dropped off a little bit ago.
Okay, that's a shame. I'll make sure to email him about this later on.
I see Bobby Joe Shavira, who we haven't heard from today yet. Would love to hear from you or Robert.
Yeah, hi. Good morning, everyone. Bobby Joe Chavarria. Sorry, I always forget to change my name when I dial in on my phone. So for the longest time, you saw me as a shared resource for PAIE, which is Progressive Alliance of the Inland Empire. But now with Sierra Club, yeah, I like the idea of the equity heat map to track land value, because for instance, in our community in Fontana, the area that they created a Southwest Industrial project zone, and then used land value as the reason that it needed to be redeveloped, and created industrial. And then they expanded the SWIP over and over and over again. Now, because once there was a buying frenzy from industrial folks to put warehouses in place, the land values shot up, and we saw homeowners or landowners want to take opportunity to do that. And in the meantime, they actually started, bulldozing homes that were some of the most affordable homes in the area. And then now and maybe it's a tracking of the fluctuating land values, because now that the city used the justification that it was okay to to decimate this neighborhood, because actually surrounding land prices, housing prices, indicated that this wasn't an economically depressed community. Like it's just a very cynical use of land value to promote, industrial gentrification as well as community displacement, and then expanding that industrial zone that now has impacted both new homeowners whose land values are higher, and then leaving behind again the lower valued homes, older homes, but 17 feet away from warehouses and industrial zones.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. When we think about an equitable electrification transition, it's not just like centered to this industry, right? It affects everything. It affects transportation, it affects housing, it affects food. And so, yeah, I just thank you for sharing that story, because I think that's a really good example of, how what we're doing here does still impact land use, right? And so I guess
Right.
you might be alluding to like some things that maybe is above us we need to talk, but we can bring up to governing bodies about, land use. I'll pass it to you, Elizabeth, in case you have any thoughts. Yeah.
No, I think that's this is a great conversation. I think we definitely want land use indicators in this map, and they may not necessarily be seen as kind of an equity layer in the first instance, but it really is an equity layer. So we definitely will be looking at land use. Land values is definitely something to look into as well. Thank you for that. I see a hand up.
Jacob, yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just calling on you. Please.
Oh, thank you, Jacqueline Bardejo. Yes, tracking the value of the property is awesome, but then also I believe making sure that we also track areas that are rezoned and have a process of where we are checking in on the businesses where the areas are rezoned for electrification to make sure that they have not been displaced. And, we talked about health earlier. We mentioned that. And I believe that's the most important thing in making sure that the land is not contaminated. I don't believe in the conditional use permits that just allow projects to happen because they can. The funding is there. What about the people long term, the people in the community, and also the workers who will be there? Yes, we have screens that we could block. Different plumes and things of that nature, but just making sure that the best effort was made to make sure the land is not contaminated and the businesses and the people were not displaced through eminent domain, as we have already seen kind of in preparation for the Alameda corridor, the rezoning that the county did for all those businesses that pretty much tell them they can't do what their families been there doing for 80 plus years. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Did you want to drop into some more specific questions, Elizabeth? And in the interest of time, even I would love to kind of go more into what you're saying, Jacqueline, which I think is a really important topic to bring up.
Yeah, no, I think just maybe to respond to Jacqueline as well. Another level, so there's different layers, right? We can also look at the site level, right? Getting really into the details, making sure for the site design that it also is kind of integrated into the community, and not kind of the opposite, right? Just has negative impacts on the community. So, things that we can think about are economic benefits as well. How does the station link to the rest of the community? What's happening around it? So land uses, as you said, and then looking at site levels, making sure it's not on the site level, not contaminating the land, for example, or having negative impacts there. Those are very good points. Thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah, I think, Stella, do we still have time or are we out of time?
I think you have like 2 minutes or so left. Um,
Well, technically, like if we're doing Q&A, we
Yeah,
still
yeah.
have Q&A that's allotted. So I think we're fine if we're just kind of combining this conversation and Q&A. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
I don't know if there are any more hands or I don't see any comments here or any hands raised, Liz, so.
Thank you, Stella.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess this is always like the part I'm just going to speak directly. That's so hard for me because it's not one thing, it's everything, right? So I guess I'd like to ask to, in the same vein of this first question that's on here, minimizing them, how do we minimize the impacts to disadvantaged communities? You know, when we're trying to broadly connect to people, we might use things like community needs assessments. We might use things like the climate action plan. We might try and go to task forces that are existing in different regions. I'm curious if anyone here on the call's got any ideas about how we can add that human element to the maps. And it's like, can I visit this map and can I then make a connection with a someone as opposed to just information? So I'd like to put that question out there just to see if anyone's got any ideas or if anyone has seen any maps that do that and how they do that.
Erin, if I can respond to that question.
Yeah.
You know, when we first started the project, you know, almost a couple years ago, we started talking, you know, reaching out to all of our partners, and we heard them say, you know, like, when can we see this, right? When can we see that the actual technology, you know, get near the trucks, the charging stations, etc. And so that was something that, you know, we kind of responded by saying, you know, as soon as the research center is up and running, then we're going to try and organize a visit, you know, a site tour, you know. So I think those types of activities could be helpful to this effort as well, because you're trying to build rapport, trying to gain trust from community members and from community organizations. And so, yeah, so like our buddy Jackie says, long-term engagements that educate and help navigate the community. Hold on, I lost the rest of your comment here, Jackie. But anyways, you know, that's exactly what, you know, we were talking about doing, is just to make sure that our community members and community organizations and cities are aware of every update, you know, as far as the technology, as far as you know, any work around trucks, charging stations, and most importantly, the workforce development side. That's what people are waiting for, right? At least from my perspective, you know, because every time we get into a meeting here, into a conversation, it's where the job's going to be, right? So, I mean, that's what we've tried to really focus on with each meeting, you know, with each event, and just proposing those types of events that would be available to community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Yeah, I think you also bring up a good point. Some of these stations already exist, right? According to the map, there are some that exist, there are some that are going to be existing soon, and then, you know, it's like we're going to plan the other ones. So giving people, I guess once the map actually launches, right, then we can point them in the direction and say, hey, here are these charging stations, go interact with them, check them out, see what they're all about, come back to us with questions. And that gives us kind of like a platform to engage with people as well. Yeah, thank you for that insight. And then also pointing people to jobs.
No doubt. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll pass the mic back over to you, Liz, in case you got any burning questions that you want to try pull out of the group while we're still here for the next, I think we got 3 minutes technically.
No, I think that this was a very productive conversation. Thank you, CTAC members. This is a great group. I think that next steps for this equity heat map are, continuing these conversations basically. So Erin and myself may be in contact with you to kind of further the discussion on this topic.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Liz and Erin. We do have a comment from Gabriel. Pay the community for their participation and expert advice. We put together community advisory groups so they can participate, be paid for their work. Absolutely, Gabriel, and that's why we have the stipend process that will be taking place shortly. So we encourage everyone that's interested, to apply for that role, and for the monies that come with that role. So we're right there with you. You have to pay, folks, and that's what organizations have told us from the very beginning, or asked about, is there going to be some sort of a stipend so that we can remain committed to this in the long term, and so that we have a little bit of money to to pad our organization for this work. So
100%. Yeah, thank you so much, Gabriel, for bringing that up. And yeah, I think still, as you said, the CBO opportunity is right there on the table.
And then there's a comment from Jackie: community equally for every stakeholder, agencies for better intergovernmental and community relations, landowners get the buy-in, just transition for best way to build the infrastructure, industry leaders to activate community benefits like workforce development, community leadership, etc., residents because they are our families. Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Stella. I was saying community, it equals all of us together. Forget the title of equally.
That's right. That's right, Jackie. Thank you. All righty. Well, Liz and Erin, thank you so much. This was fantastic. There's contact information for Erin and Liz if you want to connect with them. And really appreciate your presentation today. And I believe up next is Giovanni, who will take us, finish us up here with closing items.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much, Erin and Liz, for this conversation and all the wonderful information that you all have put together and weaved into a discussion that we can have with this group here today. Really, really appreciate your time and labor on all this. So just to close this out here real quick, as a reminder, our next CTAC meeting, our second quarterly CTAC meeting for the year, will be taking place on May 29th. Everyone that has been in attendance and we've been in communication with, we've sent out the calendar invites for the year for these quarterly meetings. But if it's your first time, I see some new names that have popped in. If this is your first time joining, drop your name, org, and email in the chat so that I have it, and then I can include you in our email communications moving forward, and so that I can send you those calendar invites if you're interested in joining us for the remaining quarterly meetings for this year, such as the next one coming up on May 29th. So again, if you're new to this space, you want to keep in touch, you want to get our emails and calendar invites for the next meetings, please, if you do not send me your name, org, and email in the chat, I won't be able to send it to you. And then next, as we alluded to earlier, we will have our next industry partner webinar series where we invite industry partners to present. Will be taking place on May 1st, and that one will be focused on just drayage. So this will be all drayage 101. What is drayage? You want to learn about what that is and what it means to electrify drayage. Join us for this next presentation that's open to the public. We'll be sending out a communication and Zoom link to tune in for that shortly. And then lastly, we'll be following up with email of a copy of the PowerPoint presentation and a recording of this meeting soon. And also, as I mentioned earlier today, later this afternoon, I will email to the entire CTAC membership and WEDAC membership communication of the reopening and of the CBO stipend opportunity that we've talked about today. And with that, next slide, just wanted to show our contact information. So if folks want to get in contact with us, there's our emails. Please reach out to us with any questions that you may have after this meeting. We're happy to continue to stay in touch and answer any questions that folks may have. And with that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for your time, your comments, your feedback today, your thoughtful questions. And again, thank you so much once again to our wonderful guest presenters today from CalSTART, Aaron and Liz. Really, really appreciate your expertise and your time. So with that, thank you all so much. And we'll continue to stay in touch.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today. Have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.
Take care,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.